Supply chain models. Dear learners, a supply chain model is a conceptual or quantitative model that explains the operations, relationships, systems, networks, decision framework, or an aspect of supply chain. In this module, we will be learning on supply chain management models for performance management. The module is presented as 3 lessons. The first lesson will explain supply chain performance and performance metrics and supply chain models for performance management. The second lesson will deal in detail the supply chain operations reference model. The third lesson will briefly explain the other supply chain operational reference models. The objectives of the module is to provide information of metrics for supply chain performance and elaborate on supply chain models for performance management. The learning outcome of the module is by the end of the session you will be able to identify and associate performance metrics across the supply chains. Apply supply chain management models. Welcome learners, we will move on to the first lesson on supply chain performance management and supply chain models. A supply chain is a global network of raw materials and merchandise suppliers, manufacturers, logistics partners, distributors, retailers and consumers who are linked through flow of products and services, information and funds to meet a customer need. The integrated supply chain points out that performance of supply chain is not only the performance of internal supply chain, that is the manufacturers or firm level, but it is a sum of performance of internal supply chain, the performance of supply chain partners, that is the suppliers and distributors, and the performance of extended supply chains of collaborators and outsourcing partners, etc. Supply chains are focused on fulfilling customer needs by value creation for end customer satisfaction, and so the supply chain performance is measured by responsiveness, reliability and total cost of the entire supply chain. With this brief understanding, we will look into the supply chain performance management systems and supply chain models. Supply chain performance measures and metrics. The supply chain performance measures are classified into 2: traditional performance measures and distinctive competitive performance measures. The traditional measures include use of financial and stakeholders data analysis to understand the cost, revenue and profitability, and the use of productivity and turnover measures, that is output to cost of inputs ratios. The measure can include total productivity or factor-wise productivity like material productivity and labor productivity. Distinctive competitive performance measures. Distinctive competitive performance measures identify how the supply chain activities are linked to the firm's objectives and customer satisfaction. The performance measure is across the capability areas, namely quality, cost and customer service, environmental performance. According to Gary S. and J.B., the specific supply chain performance measures are total supply chain management cost, supply chain cash to cash cycle, production flexibility, delivery, perfect order fulfillment, e-business performance, environment performance. Now we will move on to understanding the role of supply chain operations in relations to supply chain performance. Performance management and supply chain models. The Supply Chain Council has recognized supply chain models to integrate supply chains and to measure the performance of supply chain partners. The model spreads across the entire supply chain from raw material supplier to the end customer and covers 3 major areas, namely market interactions, transactional interactions and customer interactions. The market interactions covers all processes from market analysis and demand forecasting to delivery of products and services. The transactional interactions are all transactions and decisions from idea generation to product development, delivery, and services. It involves end-to-end transactions and information exchange between suppliers, distributors, and customers. Customer interactions include the entire supply chain processes across customer buying cycle from need identification to purchase and consumption of products and services. The supply chain models are designed to define and diagnose supply chain processes and performances, to re-engineer the processes and benchmark the best practices. The popular supply chain models are Supply Chain Operations Reference Model, Design Chain Operations Reference Model, Customer Chain Operations Reference Model, Managing the Supply Chain Performance, Product Lifecycle Operation Reference Model. With this introduction to performance metrics and supply chain models, I request you to ponder on the following points. Identify the supply chain processes and define performance metrics for businesses like Swiggy and Zomato. Thank you and meet you all in the next session on supply chain models.